Okay, I wanted to talk briefly about James Bond No Time to Die. I finally got around to seeing it, like 2 years late to the party. The movie came out in 2021, and here it is, the end of August 2023. Found it at a Goodwill, the video shelf. Somebody ditched it. They 86'd it, so I picked it up on the cheap for like $2. And my thoughts on it. What did I think? It wasn't bad. It was actually I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, but my expectations for it weren't very high. Um, James Bond films on a whole, I don't know. The Craig era is really not my favorite. Now my opinion of the Craig movies has actually come up. It's improved. I was really late to the whole Daniel Craig Bond era. I was one of the people back in 2000, whatever it was, 4 or 5, when they announced him as the new Bond. And I saw him. I was one of the people that called him James Blonde, and I was like, no, James Blonde, that's not James Bond. And I really didn't watch any of the Craig movies until, I don't know, probably like 2019. I finally sat down and watched Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre. Okay, so then this came out, and I wasn't in a rush to see it. I just wasn't real big on Craig's take. What do I think about the movie on a whole? The franchise as a whole, now it is a little complicated. My feelings of James Bond, it's not like my love for Star Trek. I like the character. I enjoy a James Bond movie, but I'm not like obsessed with it. I'm not one of these people that's like James Bond is the greatest thing ever. Um, the Craig era is kind of a roller coaster ride. It's not. I would say it's uneven. I think Casino Royale is really grounded, and it's trying to set itself in a more realistic take on the character. But it's not the first, gritty James Bond. There's been other James Bond movies that have been more grounded. For instance, my favorite Sean Connery Bond film is not Goldfinger. Everybody seems to love Goldfinger and thinks that's the best. I think that movie's where Bond turned into a cartoon character. From Russia with Love, I think is Sean Connery's best Bond movie. That's my own personal favorite Sean Connery Bond. It doesn't have the like really fancy gadgets or anything. It's more low key, and the fight that he has on the train with the henchmen, I think, is pretty good. Gritty Bond, on Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby, another one of my favorite Bond movies. I know I'm one of the weirdos that likes that one. I think that film, just the fight choreography and the action sequences in that one are another level from anything that Sean Connery did. The ski chase sequence in that film is really amazing. It's got like a Christmas theme to it too. It's weird. It's like a Bond at Christmas, and the fact that Telly Savalas plays Blofeld, in my opinion, he's the best Blofeld out of all the people that have played Blofeld. He's the best. Donald Pleasance played Blofeld, and I'm sorry, but Telly Savalas is better. He just is. He's better than Christoph Waltz, in the new Bond franchise films. Now, these films don't have anything to do with the first 20 Bond movies. The first 20 Bond films are kind of in their own continuity. They exist as a separate thing. They're kind of, you can jump in and you can watch any one of them at any time. You don't have to have seen any of the other ones, and you can pretty much figure out what's going on. These, for whatever reason, they connected them all together. So these 5 stand separate and apart in its own little separate Bond universe. And personally, if you view them that way, as separate from everything else in its own continuity, as one continuous story, it works pretty well. I mean, first 20 Bond films, they didn't have the greatest continuity anyways. It was kind of a loose continuity, but you had a different Felix Leiter all the time. I mean, Jack Lord was Felix Leiter in Doctor No, and then like they recast him several times throughout the series. It was like you always got a different Felix, and it was weird. So having Jeffrey Wright play Felix in this Bond series here and have it consistently be the same actor, I really like that. And I really like Jeffrey Wright as an actor. Doesn't bother me that he's, that Felix is black. Like, I don't care. Um, doesn't matter to me. I'm not one of the people that really flipped out about Moneypenny being recast as a woman of color. That's fine. I don't. It doesn't bother me. I mean, when they switched M from a man to a woman, Judi Dench, back when Pierce Brosnan was Bond, they had the first female M. Uh, People flipped out over that too, but I actually think she's probably my favorite M out of all of them. Like, I like Judi Dench. I wish that it would have been her throughout the entirety of the Craig run, but whatever. So what are my feelings on it? James Bond, I think this is a good send-off for the character. Like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. I think the quality of the films, the Casino Royale's good, Quantum of Solace not so good, Skyfall's good, Spectre's pretty goofy, not so good. This one's good. So it ends on a high point. All the people that were telling you that this movie was woke before it even come out, Dave Cullen, Doomcock, Nerdrotic, with Gary Beegler, The Critical Drinker, all these people that are in this, the rage mob that preemptively hates everything before it even comes out. Like, they were wrong on this, okay? Are there things about this franchise that I don't like? Yeah, I don't like Q. Having a young Q. I like Q to be an older person. I think that having a young Q doesn't really work for me. It's okay, but I would have rather have seen an older Q. I really would have. I think that Andy Serkis would have been a great Q. Whatever. Tonally, I think that the Craig era is all over the place. It tries to be serious, then it brings in the goofy elements like Spectre and Blofeld. I didn't like the twist with, Blofeld that they brought in this series. I mean, it's weird. They kind of shoehorned that whole plot element in. But the era that we're in now, I think that it's time for James Bond to go. I just don't see how you can continue to make James Bond films, even though at the end credits they say James Bond will return. Like, maybe it's time for James Bond to die. This movie, I think, made a lot of people mad because James Bond grew up. There's a time for a person to stop being a frat boy and to be a man. And I think that this was a good send-off for Bond. I liked the end. I liked what they did with him. The one thing I didn't like was the closing credits of the movie. They used the song "We Have All the Time in the World" by Louis Armstrong. That I didn't like, because that song belongs to the Bond film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That song does not belong to Craig. It's not his song. That song belongs to that movie. They should have gotten something different. But that's really my only gripe. I mean, that kind of took me out of the film, really. I was like, oh man, this is heavy. And then that song kicked in, and I was like, what are you doing? This song doesn't belong to you. This is Tracy's song. Tracy Bond. So, yeah, if you haven't seen the Craig films, I think they're worth a watch. I think the stunt work is incredible. I would much rather watch these than 90% of the dreck that Hollywood is churning out now. Give these movies a chance if you haven't seen them. I think they're kind of a mixed bag, but on the whole, I think they're pretty good. The series as a whole, of just these 5 as its own continuity, I'd probably give it like a 3.5 out of 5 as a whole. I don't think any of the movies is unwatchable. I think they're all watchable. I think that some of them, the running time is too long, but that's every movie now. I mean, what happened to people making 90-minute films, gang? What happened? Why does every movie have to be like 2 hours and 15 minutes or 2 hours and 25 minutes or 2.5 hours now? It's ridiculous. Somebody, please, start making 90-minute movies. Please. Anyways, that's all I got to say. Just thought I'd chime in, talk about the film. All you people that said that this movie was woke, you're wrong. Yes, they made Q gay, but they didn't make a big deal out of it, which I appreciated. It was just kind of like, yo, okay, he's got a boyfriend. Not a fan of it, but it wasn't, it could have been worse. I think that the way that they handled it, they just kind of mention it and move on for it. That's just the culture that we're in now, gang. It's just, that's every show now. And I don't think this was egregious. It didn't go out of its way, so to throw it in your face. But yeah, this is probably it from me. I don't see rebooting the Bond franchise again, because that's what they're going to have to do. I just don't see how they're going to make it work. The world has moved on from James Bond. No Time to Die, I disagree. I think it's time for James Bond to go. Bye-bye, James Bond. This world, you can't exist here anymore. How is James Bond going to fit into the modern culture? I just think that this was a good way for the character to sign off. I just think that they shouldn't bring him back. I know they're going to, but I don't think they should do it. I think that they should just let the character go. You know, sometimes it's just time for a franchise to end, and I just think that it's time to move on. 25 Bond films is a good run. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. You know, I guess I'll end it there. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.